Hey everybody, it's the 3D printing professor, and this is to guard you from my grotesqueness. But instead, just take a look at that really cool poster that I got from my friends at 3D Hubs. I absolutely love it, guys. It's fantastic. And let's talk instead of looking at my ugly face about some variations on the royal game of Ur. So here is the royal game of Ur, all painted and full color, looking very much like the original board and the typed up rules. Uh, as of the time of this recording, this Kickstarter that I'm doing for this to get this into your hands has only 1 week left. And if you have not backed already, you better hustle. There is a digital downloads version which includes not just this stuff, which is on Thingiverse, but also includes the diamonds, which aren't, and the printed rules, which also aren't on Thingiverse. And these printed rules include some variations. And people were asking me about the variations of the game, so I thought I'd put together a quick video for you. So the rules for the game of Ur are kind of weird because we don't have them. And so for years, people had the board and the game and the pieces, and we just kind of made up rules to them. And I think that some of the made up rules were pretty cool, but they came up with these made up rules by looking at the board, looking at the frequency of certain frequency and location of certain pieces, and making best guesses on them. One of those guesses that people came up with is they said, okay, these squares right here with the little 5 pips inside a doobly look like they're only on these corners. They're nowhere else on the board. And so their thought was that what would happen is you would start your piece face down and come down here and then race up the middle with your opponent racing up the middle as well. But then when you get to this square right here, you hang a left or a right if you're on the other side. Come here, and this square promotes this piece, causes it to flip over, which then means that it continues its path this direction and then races back down, and that this becomes the finish line, and that you can't knock a promoted piece off of this square. Now, I think that that's very interesting. Again, based on the location of these squares, that makes sense. However, there is graffiti. Somebody has made up a board, somebody painted a board of this game on a wall. And the interesting thing about that is that this variation continued this path going straight, and this path went off to the side, and they did not break. So I think that the historical evidence talks against that sort of back and forth mechanic. It's okay, but playing that variation isn't as fun. It's kind of difficult to remember which pieces. I mean, even with the promotion, it's confusing and it's frustrating. And so for me, while I mentioned that variation in the rules, and I've got a little illustration of the new path that the map takes, I don't like playing that way. Another variation that people came up with is they looked at these little eye symbols, and they noticed that there are 2 of them in the staging area and 1 of them in the middle, and their thought was, okay, on these spots you can stack up to 4 of the same color. And so this one here in the middle, you could, potentially as you're going, whoever gets there first can kind of stack all of their pieces on there. However, what happens when your opponent has the opportunity to land on that square? And there's 2 possibilities. Either having 2 people there prevents them from being able to take it, which is actually the way I prefer to play that one if I use this variation, or you run the risk of them smashing the whole stack and sending them all back, which I actually don't enjoy that variation because it really kind of makes this square worthless. You don't want to stack them up. I like saying if you have 2 on there, that prevents them from landing on that square, power in numbers or whatever. And so you can just use this square as a staging area, stacking it up and stuff like that if you're the first to claim it. So I kind of like that variation, but I don't like that it allows you to stack them up in the staging area. That just doesn't, I don't know. The other variation is these little 5 pip squares. these little 5 pip squares, the theory is that there are only 2 of them. They only appear on the race in the middle. And the thought is, if you land there, that your opponent, if they land there, instead of sending you back, they sit on your piece, which I think is brilliant. And the idea is that the top piece is the only one that can move off. So essentially, by doing this, they're saying, you know, you don't get to move until I finish moving. And because there are 4 of them, that seems to indicate that somebody else could come along and make the same thing, and that this can become a contested area where you're fighting. And I play the variation that you can't stack on yourself, but you can stack on your opponent, or maybe you could. I don't know. I play the variation where you can't stack on yourself, only your opponent. And I like the idea of these contested areas. I almost always play with that variation. Because it's just fun to have this little area that instead of knocking them out, you just kind of, stop. I'm holding you there. It's super cool. But those are not official, air quotes, official variations. The official variation, the tablet that Irving Finkel found, had some new variation rules on it. And here's what they are. So in this new variation of the rules, if you roll 4 blacks on the dice, then you get that counts as a 5 instead of a 0. Okay, so that's first change. Second change is, in the old days they had birds. They replaced these tokens with birds, and everybody knew what the value of the birds were, but it was confusing to me. So instead I came up with this idea. If you flip these tokens over, some of them are blank on the back, and some of them have numbers on the back, and you put aside the ones that are blank on the back, and we just want the numbers. And so there's a number 1 and a number 2 and a number 3 and 4 and 5, and same with the white side. So let me see if I can get all of those. There we go. 4, 2, 5, and 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the 2 blanks get taken away. And in order to get these pieces on the board now, you have to roll their exact number. So on my first move, I roll a 1, and so I can move the 1 out, right? And white moves, and then black moves again, and I got a 2, so I can move the 2 out. But then if I roll again and I get a 2, I'm stuck. Now the exception is the 5 piece. The 5 piece can move out on any roll, and you cannot leave your staging area until you have 1 piece on each of these squares, and it doesn't matter which piece is on there. So you could potentially like get a roll of 1, move the 2 1 over, and then get a roll of 2 again and move the 5 out in its place because it's the wild card. And then once you have all 4 out, then you can start moving out of this area. The second thing is that if you land on one of these rosette squares right there, then you gain, and you need to have 50 points, they say. And to make this more fun, I actually reduced it down to like 30 when I played it, but still 50 points. So you'll get 50 of these little tokens, these little diamond, 3D printed diamond tokens. When you land on one of these rosette squares, in addition to getting a second roll, you also take a number of points equal to that piece's value. So if this piece landed there, you practically already start out with 4, unless you get the 5 to land there. However, if as you're going, if I land on this one again, I'd get another 4 points. But if I can't, if I just jump over it, you lose that many points. And if your opponent is already sitting on the rosette square and you just pass over them, you pay those 4 points to your opponent. Okay? And then there are additional rules. Let's see. If you get all the pieces off the board first, you get 5 extra points. And if you don't have enough of these points, you start to take, if you run out of those 50 tokens, you start to take them from your opponent's pool. And then the losing player takes all of the pieces. So let's say that they manage to get the 1 off, and the 3 off, and the 4 off. but the 2 and the 5, they haven't, they're still on the board trying to get them off when the black player gets all of their pieces off of the board. Well, then they have to pay 7 points to their opponent. And if they don't have 7 points, the winner can take 7 points from the pool that's sitting on the side for that. And then they count their final score, however many they got, and then you play again 3 times, and you keep adding your score up, and whoever's got the highest score at the end of 3 rounds wins. So that is the official variation of the game, and you can play it with the version of the board that is on the Kickstarter, including the 3D print option for you if you want to go that route. So there you go, the Royal Game of in all of its fun. I do kind of like some of these variations, and I kind of mix and match them, and I think that it's fair to do that. We still don't know. There are little pips around the edge of the board, and some people think that they went all the way around, but looking at the board, it seems to me like they were very deliberately placed, that there were 3 here and 3 and 2 here and 8 here. Why? What were those indicating? What they seem to indicate to me is that we start out on this side and then we actually cross over, so the winner's on that side as opposed to that side. But that changes the gameplay none whatsoever. But why the specific numbers? Well, it's a mystery for time that we may never know. But these variations of the game are all in the typed up rules that come with the Kickstarter. Even the 3D print version, the print and play version of the Kickstarter comes with these, and these are formatted to fit in the board. Ignore this terrible paint job with everything else, so that when you're done, you just close them all up with the rules inside of them, put them on your shelf to show your friends and family with all of the game pieces in there. So there you go. I hope that this helps answer some people's questions about the various variations of the Royal Game of that are out there. And yeah, I thank you guys very much for watching. I hope that if you're watching this in the first week that this video comes out, that you'll rush over to the Kickstarter and back it, or share this video with your friends. And keep in mind that if you do share anything about the Royal Game of Kickstarter, even a video related to it, and let me know about it, at the end of the Kickstarter, I'm giving away a free board to somebody, so you don't even have to be a backer of the Kickstarter. If you share this with other people, you have a chance to win a 3D printed board ready for you to play, just for sharing this. So I want to throw that out there. Thank you guys very much for watching. Safety first, and I'll see you next time.